I remember that you were also talking about, there is something that you are doing apart from your main line of business to promote track driving as a sport. Would you want to talk about that?
So my problem with all of this has been that, anybody who drives a car like this or anybody who has a car which is even slightly modified
Sure.
is immediately judged. So people feel that the person will be reckless, the person will be driving irresponsibly, and anybody who goes on the track is somewhere not addressed the right way.
Welcome to part 2 with Kunal, where we dive deeper into the thrilling world of track racing. This episode takes us on a journey through Kunal's experiences with car modifications, contrasting the stigmas of modding with the realities of track racing. Hear how Kunal debunks the myth that track driving is just for high-end cars, showing that even models like Swift and the Polo have their place on the circuit. Then join us as Kunal opens up about the serious focus on safety in this high-speed sport and learn about the stage-wise performance upgrades that can kickstart your track adventure. It's all about evolving responsibly on the track, with Kunal guiding every step of the way.
So, considering that you have evolved yourself as a driver, and you've driven a different bunch of cars from starting from not very expensive cars and to something like this, could you give like a rough estimation on for the viewers as to if they have a standard car like a Volkswagen Polo or let's say a normal Octavia, what customization they can start with in order to drive and enjoy on the track?
So actually, I was speaking to Bharatji today only.
Oh.
And I asked him that what is the
वो सस्ते
maximum...
mods नहीं करते.
नहीं ऐसा नहीं है वो, he does a lot of practical stuff.
अच्छा.
And their approach, in
Of
fact, Bharat's and Akshay's both's approach, I feel,
Yeah.
is to invest in parts which will give you the maximum return. So in a way, the fastest way to go fast on a track.
Sure.
The smartest and the cheapest way to go on the track is their approach.
Yeah, sure.
So kind of they work on that school of thought. So I was asking him, I said that, what is the maximum potential one can explore on a VRS and what sort of money will that cost?
Sure.
So the maximum which he made me understand was 5 lakhs to build a 400 bhp car.
Okay.
Which is the VRS. That's the highest.
5 lakhs.
5 lakhs.
Not bad.
So
I mean,
you can now understand the spectrum. So you can start as low as a few thousand, and that's the max you can go.
But when it comes to in terms of components, when let's say I'm wanting to get into track driving, so what should be the first 2-3 components that I should look at?
So the first thing, I think, track or no track, one has to understand that a tire is the only component which connects the car to the tarmac.
Sure.
So that is the most important.
Well said.
Then once you have got that sorted, I think the next thing I would invest in will be better brakes and better cooling.
Sure.
So I would do those 2 things. And then as I keep understanding my car and understanding my skill set and getting it there where I want to be, then I'll keep changing the components as per my driving style. There is no one way to success.
Understood.
So sometimes, very slow cars or not that fast cars are so good in the technical circuit.
Fair enough.
That they can complete the track in a very, very effective time.
I remember that you were also talking about, there is something that you are doing apart from your main line of business to promote track driving as a sport. Would you want to talk about that?
So my problem with all of this has been that, anybody who drives a car like this or anybody who has a car which is even slightly modified is immediately judged. So people feel that the person will be reckless, the person will be driving irresponsibly, and anybody who goes on the track is somewhere not addressed the right way. I feel there is some sort of judgment, which is what stops people and stops kids to get inspired and come on the racetrack, which is not what people feel about golf. So,
well said.
So
I feel so I can relate to it.
Yeah. So what I feel and what I do as a side project is just simply spread awareness and tell people to come and experience the track. I try to book the track as often as I can.
Okay.
And it's an open for all. Anybody can
sure.
pay and come. And people who don't understand can... We are
Come.
trying to build, come experience, and we are trying to build some sort of a platform which will share some knowledge to make people understand that it is an extremely responsible sport. It is extremely safety centric, and it actually makes you a better person like any other sport does.
Sure.
The last thing you do is become reckless.
Of course. I mean, I can totally relate to you while you know, as in when you said that, because so I keep going for off-roading, right? So off-roading also is a very extreme sport. I mean, there are different levels of extremities to it, but the kind of off-roading I am into, it's you know, quite extreme with the kind of builds we have and everything. So people have this myth that, you know, when you're going for off-roading, let's say a guy who's just bought Thar, for general people, he wants to go off-road. तो उनको लगेगा यार ये क्या कर रहा है, मतलब यू नो जब सड़क है तो ऑफ रोड जाके क्या प्रूव करना चाह रहा है, ईगो है कि मेरी गाड़ी यहाँ चढ़ सकती है वहाँ चढ़ सकती है. देयर आर पीपल लाइक दैट, नो डाउट अबाउट दैट. But then I'll give you an example, a very quick example of my own father. The day I took him to off-roading, you know, he was like, you know, it's not safe and all that stuff. So I was like, you come.
Okay.
He was a little, you know, he was taken aback. What do you mean you come? Tu meko off-roading ke liye bula raha hai. मैंने कहा चलो, at least you'll get to know, you know, what I mean when I say that, you know, I mean, there is a risk involved to it, but then we try to cover as many risks as possible.
Right.
Like, you know, if you have a roll cage inside you wear a helmet, and then you have towing belts. When you're doing something extreme, your vehicle is equipped in a certain way so that, I mean, to put it very short, you don't end up killing yourself.
Sure.
If something happens, if the vehicle topples, you don't end up killing yourself. Your vehicle will not let you, you know, get crushed or whatever it is.
Sure.
So I can completely relate to it when you say that.
Yeah.
And yeah, another very interesting question, which I ask almost everybody. Are you inclined towards tuned fast cars or stock fast cars?
So, personally for me, like I love building my cars, and I think it's a big stress buster when I look up what is going on in the world, what all I can do, and kind of it makes the car mine.
Sure.
So, I think I will always choose a build over a bot.
Any particular builds that you have worked on? I mean, minus this one, of course.
So, as any, you know, car guy, I started, my first car was actually my dad's old Lancer.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first car, and then you start doing things to it, you start learning about it.
It was the 1.6 petrol, if I'm
1.5.
1.5 petrol, okay.
So then you start putting your first air filter, first stage one setup. So you start there. So I think the first car I ever worked on was my Lancer. Then the next car I got was another car in my house only, which was an automatic Corolla.
Oh, okay.
So which had a stage one setup, which was a basic filter and exhaust, and I think that's what made cars supercars at that time. There was nothing else you could do. So it was an automatic. So fun story here that at that time we would go for these drag races and all of that.
I think it was a golden Corolla, if I'm
white.
not wrong.
It was a pearl white.
Pearl white, and I think I saw you on one of
Arush worked on the
the
car.
shakedown. I think you were there.
I don't
which
know.
used to happen in Rohini, DTU. Drag races.
Maybe. So I used to turn up for all drag events.
Understood.
And since it was an automatic, it was slow. So possibly I was the only idiot in the whole world who actually imported a manual gearbox.
Are you serious?
And tried to convert an automatic to a manual because I was losing a drag race. Even though the engine never started after that, and I had to revert back to the automatic and eventually sell the car.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have been all kinds of crazy. Then after that I picked up a VRS.
The 245?
Not the 245. This was a MK1.
Ah, okay.
The 145 bhp.
145 HP.
Yeah, put a Typhoon kit, put a nice exhaust Miltec, and put a nice tune.
Okay.
So that was like a dream, and I felt, boss, for a car.
What numbers were you able to pull out after the get?
I have no idea.
I doubt you would have measured that.
There were no number checking. All I knew that I could kick anybody's ass on the drag strip. So I was
think
very
back then we didn't even have dynos here to really check the numbers.
I didn't even care about a dyno. All I knew is that I want to beat that car on the strip. So from there, I I sold the VRS and bought a Toyota MR2.
Okay.
Yeah, and this one was in a pretty bad shape. And I also started a garage and started restoring cars and started tuning cars. That was my first business actually.
By what name?
It was called Auto Customs.
Okay.
And,
faintly seem to be familiar. Yeah.
So for some reasons it didn't work out, but I bought the MR2 because I wanted to build a show car.
Okay.
And so we did a lot of stuff to it. And even though it was not a very fast car, but it was a very cool car to have. And then after that I went abroad and I started, building my life, and I was away from the car scene for some time.
Of course.
So I sold the MR2 and bought an Endeavour.
Okay.
I loved the car though. That is the only car I drove the most. And I enjoyed doing the basics in that car. It was a really rugged, fun car.
Okay.
And then of course I had to go back to buying another fast car. And so I sold my practical, great, amazing Endeavour. And I bought a Octavia 1.8 TSI.
Okay.
And again, you do the basics, you put the remap, you do this and that.
Remap to chahiye. You can't keep a car stock.
You can't keep the car stock. It's impossible. Even on the Endeavour, there was a remap.
It was a 3.2, I'm assuming.
No, it was a 2.5.
2.5.
So 2.4 थी या 5 थी?
The new design, right?
New design.
हाँ तो 2.2 था फिर. 2.2.
2.2 था?
हाँ 2.2.
Okay.
हाँ.
I know that the stock was around 150 or something.
Right.
And after the tune, it was a Pete's box actually.
Tuning box, okay.
It was around 200.
Okay.
So then after the Octi, I kept it for some time.
Okay.
And then I bought my first M3.
Right. The blue one.
The blue one.
Ah, okay.
And then after the M3, I bought this.
M3 you kept for, I think,
8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
Damn, yeah, that was.
It was very difficult to sell the car.
I mean, for the viewers, I can tell that this car, the M3 that he's talking about, it's with Kabir now.
Yeah.
And boss, it doesn't look like it's an 8-year-old machine.
It was my car, And till date, I said, Kabir, look, you're buying it, but it will remain my car. But actually, Kabir is also like a brother, so I think it's gone in great hands. And he has made the car famous on all platforms.
He has. Of course, he has. He showed me that video, I mean, where you were in the middle of the drift pad, apparently, and he was drifting his older BMW around your car.
Sure.
His car now, so
he was
to say.
doing it.
But
so I, as a common joke, because he loves drifting, I said I preserved her for 8 years only to give it to a guy like you. So
fair enough. Tell us a little bit now that we know that you've worked in BMW also, and which year was that when you worked in BMW?
10 to 12.
2010 to 2012. Do you have something to say about the way BMW is changing their design language?
So honestly, I feel that when you are in love with something, and even if there is like a minor change to it, it takes time for you to get used to it. I remember when I was working there, we just came out of, so BMW names their generations by alphabets.
Okay.
So at that time, we had the E series going on. And so to say the 5 series, if you remember the crisp angle, angel eyes, it was called the E60.
E60, right.
And we discontinued the E60 and we brought in the F10.
Okay.
And it was slammed like how. And people were like, this is not my car. It might be a great car, but it's not my car. So I think BMW is one of those brands which has a very strong fanboy kind of emotional love towards each of the series or each of the generations they launch. So every time I think there is a change. It takes time to get used to it. I have a very strong BMW bias, not majorly for how they look, but for how they drive.
Right.
So even though when I saw the first cut of the new gen, I kind of hated it. But I feel that slowly I started getting used to it and you start liking it eventually. I think so. But it's debatable. I think that's what makes all cars unique and all car lovers unique. So
I mean, personally, I recently happened to have come across the new M3. I'm not too much of a fan. I just think it looks a little too plasticky compared to, let's say...
Maybe yes.
Yeah.
But my bent to judge a car is so much inclined towards how it drives.
Of course, yeah.
So that sometimes I look past the design.
I mean, barring the driving part, I really think that there's nothing that beats the BMW when it comes to
That's the whole point.
driving
I
pleasure.
think in that league,
Yeah.
I think to go that fast, you have to really spend a lot of money.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
it makes a lot of practical sense to stick to BMW.
Absolutely. One last question. I mean, I'm also short on time, unfortunately, today. But one last question. And I've had this discussion with many enthusiasts like Bharatji and Kabir and even Prithvi for that matter. The car culture seems to have changed a lot in the
Sure.
past, let's say, a decade or 2 decades.
Yeah.
Some people think it's changing for the good, but a lot of us enthusiasts feel that it's changed. It's gone southbound actually. What do
Okay.
you have to say? What's your experience on that?
So interestingly, the guys I hung out when I drove my first Lancer
Yeah.
are the same guys I hang out now.
Oh wow.
So
God bless you.
I don't know too many new entrants, and I'm not keeping a tab of it because
Understood.
a lot of my personal time goes in building my company.
Understood.
And I'm not too much in touch with what new trends are or what new guys or new 18-year-olds are doing. I'm not in touch with them. But all I know is that we have really evolved.
Okay.
And the kind of things we are doing now and how we approach our passion and how we see things, I think it's really gone up. I wouldn't say that's gone down. And with the kind of information and things available in India,
Yeah.
and especially with people, you see Akshay's setup,
Yeah.
you see like
Yeah.
a dyno, the
Yeah.
kind of work he's doing, the kind of knowledge which is now available here.
Yeah.
I think people are doing great stuff. It's I think more the question is more about where you look and who you talk to. So I think the people who really mean to be a proper enthusiast, who love their cars, who love everything about the community, I think they are doing great stuff.
Sure. Chalo. I think constraint of time, we'll have to end the conversation
Sure.
today. But lots to learn from a person like you.
Thank you.
And a lot of things we could continue talking about, but probably we'll keep that for another day.
Cool.
But thanks a lot for coming today, man. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.